beginning of the shoe industry originally started in Auburn in 1836. The very first shoe company was the Minot Shoe Company of West Auburn. It was powered by the Androscoggin River. Water power was the most efficient way to run a factory at the time. The population of Auburn was only about 4,000. Because of the Civil War that began in 1861, many large shoe factories were built in order to make shoes for the soldiers. Since many of the shoe workers went off to the war, the shoe factories attracted many French Canadians from Quebec. Most of the French Canadian workers would come for a little while and get the money that they needed, and then they would return back to their homes. But after a while, they started bringing their families with them, and they would permanently move into Auburn. By 1890, the population had grown to 12,000. Like Auburn, the population in Lewiston more than doubled from 3,584 in 1850 to 7,424 in 1860. One major railroad that was used to transport the French Canadians was the Grand Trunk Railroad. When Lewiston and Auburn connected to the Montreal-Portland Railroad line in 1873, it helped thousands of French Canadians to migrate, which increased the population in Lewiston to 19,083. In Auburn, the shoe industry became the dominant industry by the late 19th century. The shoe industry spread to Lewiston in 1912, and the first factory in Lewiston was the Knapp Shoe Factory. Auburn called themselves the shoe capital of the U.S. They were making over 6 million pairs of shoes because the workers were very dedicated and hardworking. In 1919, a major shoe company called the Federal Shoe Co. was falling behind in business, and the workers were using their day off to make sure the shoes that were destroyed were replaced. The reason why the shoes were burned was because the freight train that they were on had caught fire, and all the shoes were destroyed. These shoes were on a freight train because they were on their way to a thing that was called a shoe show. The shows were used to display new shoe designs that have been made. In 1933, the Lamy Wellahan Shoe Building burned down in a fire. Just a year later, a new fireproof building was put up on the same site as the old one. The new building was going to be 2 stories high, and it was going to be a new design. The person who organized this was Daniel J. Wellahan. The building was going to have not only a warehouse of shoes, but also offices for Fred H. Lancaster and Dr. William Welch. Because of the addition of all the new people, tension formed in factories, mills, and neighborhoods. The conditions in the factories were bad. They were crowded, the workdays were long, extremely hot, and they weren't paid much. Illness spread quickly, and dehydration was very common. And to make matters worse, they didn't have health insurance, so they couldn't afford treatment. The poverty of the Great Depression combined with the poor working conditions in the shoe mills caused the workers to join the 1937 shoe workers' strike. This strike was one of the largest strikes in the state's history. It was led by representatives of the United Shoe Workers of America and the Congress of Industrial Organizations. The strike involved the state police, the National Guard, and was opposed by the press and Catholic Church. The shoe manufacturers were also against the strike and were determined to keep their long-time open shop policy. The fall of the shoe industry started around this year when about 19 factories had to shut down because of the strike. Although there was a slight boost during World War II, after the war the shoe industry began to decline again. In 1955, one of the local shoe manufacturers, the Lombard Watson Shoe Co., caught fire, and most of their materials perished. As an example of the shoe manufacturers' support for one another, other shoe shops came to help out with restoring all of the things that were lost, and the Lombard Watson Co. very much appreciated it. Alfred Barrow, who was in a Lombard Watson Co. company, said that because the company had lost a lot of space for sewing and things, other companies made room for the workers right away, even though there were competition for sales. Burrell had said that in the fire, 22,000 pairs of shoes had been destroyed, and that was supposed to be for the Easter fair.
Burrell said that in the fire, Lombard Watson Co. lost about 2/3 of its stitching and lasting space, and that other factories immediately made space available in their stitching rooms for these employees who were stitching shoes for the Lombard, Watson Co.
Between 1957 and 1961, the largest shoe manufacturers closed their factories, largely due to the imported shoes coming from Korea and Taiwan. In 1977, President Carter approved of an orderly marketing agreement. This agreement limited the number of pairs of non-rubber shoes that were imported from Korea and Taiwan for 4 years, from July 1977 to July 1981. He signed this agreement because U.S. footwear manufacturers were loudly complaining that they were going out of business due to over half the non-rubber shoes that were in the U.S. weren't made here. This agreement helped to stabilize the shoe industry in Auburn, Lewiston, and in the entire state of Maine. July of 1981 was the end of the orderly marketing agreement, which limited the number of shoes that were able to be imported. Although the shoe industry fought hard to extend the agreements, President Reagan allowed them to expire. The president felt that since the shoe manufacturers had restructured and become more modernized with the new technology of the time, that they could now compete better with any increase of imported shoes.
His Republican colleague, Senator William S. Cohen, said he was extremely disappointed at the administration's action.
I think Reagan is short-sighted in not having continued the agreements for another couple of years, commented Sam Smith, president of Supreme Slipper Manufacturing Company, Inc. in Lewiston. I think that he's made a mistake.
The shoe industry tried again to get President Reagan to put a limit on the number of shoes that were being imported to the U.S., but in 1985, President Reagan did not allow a limit. This again defeated the local shoe manufacturers.
While imports of non-rubber footwear have increased rapidly over the past 12 months, I believe the industry has been and is in the process of successfully adjusting to increased import conditions. An industry that was once characterized by many small firms with limited manufacturing capacity has now emerged as an industry led by larger, more efficient producers who have invested in state-of-art manufacturing equipment, diversified into profitable retail operations, and filled out their product lines with imports to respond to rapidly changing consumer taste. Ronald Reagan.
The shoe manufacturing business in Auburn, Lewiston has gone from one of the biggest shoe industry employers to one of the smallest. The surviving shoe manufacturers have become specialized in niche markets. One of the only shoe manufacturers left in the Auburn-Lewiston area now is Falcon Shoe. They specialize in making boots for LL Bean, Dunham, Timberland, and Cabela's. They also have niche markets for new technology boots for firefighters and even for miners.
Falcon Performance Footwear serves as a model for how Maine manufacturers can grow even in the toughest economic times. When Carl Spang assumed leadership of the company in 2007, he recognized that innovation and production efficiency were the keys to survival. Falcon took advantage of the state resources to develop high-value added products that utilize advanced materials and meet the highest safety standards. Furthermore, by incorporating the principles of lean manufacturing into its plant layout, the firm achieved substantial cost savings and developed a production capacity with enormous flexibility and rapid ability to respond to customized orders. Maine MEP Chairman Bruce Polkman.